Our next speaker is a business that's behind the scenes, very well known in Asia, but probably not the brand that you see from the Kakaos and the WeChat banks. If I were to describe it, I'd say back in the gold rush days, they were the guys selling pickaxes and shovels. So I want to introduce to you Matthew Chen, CEO of Sunline, the largest core banking product in China. And I also want to announce the moderator for the session, Boyong Li, who's one of the senior content editors for Money 2020.
That's just next one.
Yep, that's it, next.
Oh, a lot of people leaving. Morning again. My name is Matthew Chen. Today I'm going to talk about, my topic today is the platform Ecology Trifecta. Okay, the slide, the top right-hand corner you can see is actually some stats coming out of China. Unfortunately, the legend, because maybe the color doesn't show up. So the first two bars stand for 2017 and 2018. The next two bars actually the forecast for the next 2 years, for 2019 this year and also the next year. So it's the year-on-year growth of the so-called digital finance in terms of the, the online wealth management, the online microloans, and also the online payments, for the 4 years that we're talking about here. So you can see that the stats is actually phenomenon. It's a big disrupt to the traditional bankers. So what a lot of banks in China has done over the past decade, everyone trying to do digital transformation. And one of which is people trying to create a so-called a super app in China. A lot of banks actually try that, but unfortunately, actually had failed quite miserably. Everyone nowadays has a smartphone, right, in hand. I mean, if you look at your smartphone, and if you look at different smartphones have different ranking, but some smartphone you can rank by screen time, by airtime, and some you can rank at least by battery usage or data usage. And if you're trying to find your own mobile banking app, and usually it is the last little dot in the end. So the stats actually shows that, the number of the daily activity that happens on the top banking app, which is ICBC in China, right, is actually just 5.42 million. It's only 3.5% of WeChat, just echoing what Jeff actually presented. One of the largest ecosystems in China is obviously the WeChat platform, which pretty much taking up the whole nation, right? The whole nation is only 1.4 million population. So everyone trying to tap into that WeChat platform. A lot of people trying to, spend a lot of marketing dollars, but not so successful. Not so successful. The so-called notion of B2C, connecting the bank that offers the traditional banking product and services to the end user, which is the C side, actually failed quite miserably in China. Let alone the little guys, right? There's also a lot of little players, smaller banks, and also a lot of smaller financial institutions. Non-bank financial institutions, including fintech companies. So everyone's struggling, clearly, right? So because the B2C notion is actually failed in China. On the other end of the spectrum is the so-called underbanked people, or underbanked or unbanked people. I mentioned just now in the panel that there are large population of underbanked people. Credit cards, there's only less than 15% of people in China owns a credit card. So there are definitely a large number of underbanked people in China. They're also struggling, trying to get into the so-called, the banks that are providing these financial products and services. So these two ends, the spectrum, they don't connect. They don't connect to each other. So in August 26 last year, we actually jointly launched a platform called Thinkline Platform with Tencent, trying to help especially the little guys. We call them the underdogs, right? The little banks, trying to help them to tap into this 1 billion WeChat users by creating a platform which we call it a Trifecta platform. So I mentioned just now in the panel that it takes 3 parties to sing or to dance. So you need the B side and also the C side, but also need a B in the middle. So we call it a B2B to C model. So that's our Trifecta. So we have a platform in the middle. We also have all the traditional banks, traditional banks or non-bank financial institutions that provide the traditional product and services on the left-hand side, or the platform or ecosystem provider. In this particular case, is WeChat, right? 1 billion WeChat user. But there's also a lot of other smaller ecosystem providers on the other end of spectrum, and we'll create a platform in the middle to connect them. So this is really our definition of open banking in China. So far, we have 86 banks, traditional banks, and also a lot of non-banks, financial institutions, including fintech companies on this platform, Lime and Kicking. And the average time to launch, for a smaller bank to launch a digital bank in China on this platform is 2 weeks, not 12 months. So just look at some of the product and services we can offer on this platform. So obviously, the traditional CASA account, the microloans, and so on and so forth, you can get that. But more importantly, on the next slide, is a lot of non-traditional product and services that we can offer. Take one example, right? So we all know, Jeff also mentioned, in the Tencent ecosystem, there's a bank, the first true digital bank called WeBank in China, who live and breathe in the Tencent WeChat ecosystem. WeBank has a lot of goodies to offer, right? For instance, they have one of the best anti-fraud pre-loan modules, given that they're taking the whole nation pretty much. And that module is actually made as a services by WeBank. They try to offer to a lot of smaller banks, right? A lot of smaller banks, they don't have AI capacity, don't have capacity to employ a lot of data scientists to do to the big data, analytical stuff, social media stuff, and which WeBank can offer. And that service is very difficult to plug and play into all of the bank traditional core banking system. So what we do is we let them plug into our system, our core banking system, which is actually backing up this Thinkline platform, and make that as a plug and play services for the little underdogs, the little banks in China. So that's what we do as another add-on services for this platform. And another phase is actually probably more interesting. If you look at Tencent's ecosystem, there are a lot of non-financial elements. For example, gaming is one of Tencent's largest income stream. There's a huge young millennium called Generation Z, right? The upcoming millennium generation who's hooked up. I don't know whether you heard of online gaming in China. It's called King's Glory, which a lot of these young kids spend day as night hook up with that. And then they want to buy weapons to upgrade themselves to the next level and to be that monster. So there's a point system in the Tencent ecosystem. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's also the bank's point system, right? So you spend a lot of money, you accumulate 10,000 points. Maybe you can swap that boring umbrella, which a lot of people can be bothered to redeem. So what we can do is, I call it, for a lack of better English translation, I call it equity swap. So there's equity, right? So I do a swap on this platform, so I can offer that particular weapon to a particular smaller bank, say, hey, you go and open up a bank account on this platform with me, then you get this special weapon for a limited time, offering only through my bank. And all of a sudden, this bunch of young kids will be swarming into your doors to open an account with you, right? So I'm just giving you an example. So there are a lot of goodies that within Tencent's ecosystem that we can classify them as equity. We can do a point system swap with a bank. So there's a lot of other things because of time that I'm not going to elaborate. So these are things that non-financial things that we can trade between different parties, right? These are all collaborations on this Thinkline platform. So again, our definition of open banking concept is really, it takes three parties to sing. It's so-called a B2B2C Trifecta is actually a success recipe to a so-called formalizing a digital ecosystem. Because a lot of people saying, hey, I'm trying to create my own ecosystem, but experience proven it's very, very difficult to create your own ecosystem. You should really tap into other people's ecosystem and then banking through other people's applications, apps, rather than creating a super app, right? Your banking app is forever going to be your own channels. So you really need to collaborate with all the other ecosystems app and banking through their app on this platform. That's really the idea of connecting B2B to C, the trifecta. that's really the end of my little presentation. So I think I open up, it's a Q&A session, right? Boyong?
So thank you very much, Matthew Chen. I think you and I, we met in China show, we met in Asia show, and here the third time is we currently in the Europe show. So very interesting presentation. Just a simple question firstly. What's the difference between mobile banking and digital banking?
Well, I think, mobile banking, as I mentioned, right, there's nothing new under the sun. A mobile banking is still a traditional channel for a bank. It's still a bank's traditional channel, albeit it's a digital, right? It's no different from its own traditional channel, no different from internet banking, no different from credit cards. It's just a bank-own channel. Digital banking is really banking through your partners, banking with your partners. So you can actually onboard customers through your partner's app rather through your own banking app. That's probably the biggest difference between the two.
Yeah, got you. And I know in China, a lot of the commercial banks, for example, like ICBC, Bank of China, and some of the small, medium-sized banks, they are very struggling with their own banking app. So how do you think, how do the bank actually can conduct their super app successfully? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think proven in China, right? Even for one of the largest universal bank, it's very difficult to turn. It doesn't matter how much marketing dollar you spend to turn your own banking app into a super app. Rather, you should tap into other super app. In China, obviously, is WeChat. I mean, this is exactly why WeChat opened up a mini program, which is actually where we launched this Thinkline Platform. Mini program is an open platform to everyone, so anyone can launch their program. It's like a little mini app within the super app of WeChat. Rather than the bank creating their own super app, they actually will help them tap into the largest super app, which is WeChat in China.
Yeah. And another thing is back to your presentation. It's a very brilliant presentation, and I heard it from China show and also for Asia show. Is like we call it the Trifecta Ecology platform. So how do you think, what is a majority of necessary elements to build up a Trifecta Ecology platform? What do you think the elements are?
The key is collaboration, right? Again, so the larger bank trying to create this super app, trying to dominate, failed, and then Tencent. I mean, technically speaking, they already have a super app, right? They can actually launch this platform by themselves, but they didn't. Rather than doing that themselves, Tencent actually invest into Sunline, and we using us as a front house to create this platform in the middle. So it takes three parties to dance, right? Collaboration is the key.
Collaboration is key, okay. So, and I know that your company, the headquarters of your company based in Shenzhen, in China, and you're as an overseas CEOs of the Sunline group, so, and you're in charge of expanding the overseas market globally. So how the ecosystems differ among China and other nations? What's your opinion for that?
I mean, China is a large homogeneous country, right? So it has a super app like WeChat. If you're stepping outside of China, there are a lot of different pockets of ecosystems. So probably that's the fundamental difference between China and outside of China. So technology can hopefully connecting these pockets of ecosystem, many pockets of ecosystem together in a more seamless way. So that's probably the biggest difference, and technology then can definitely help.
Yeah, and as Tencent actually, I mean, 2 years ago, Tencent actually made a strategic investment in your firm, and also both you and Tencent jointly launched a distributed financial service framework. So tell us more about your relationship, your company's relationship with Tencent, and why they invest in your company.
So Tencent and us, we launched an upgraded version of this Thinkline, really. So it's a build-up upgrade version of the one we launched in last August. So Tencent had their Global Digital Summit recently in Kunming. So we launched the upgraded version of that. It's really helping all the disadvantaged people, right? Disadvantaged financial institutions, including the fintech company, because we can potentially using this Thinkline as an incubator for fintech companies, for startup companies. Because the thing that the startup company need the most, these fintech companies, is not just a venture capital. They actually need nutritions. They need buyers and sellers. They need a marketplace, right? So this really is a marketplace that is tightly run, so they can help them to survive better.
Yeah.
So that's really the key gesture of this Thinkline platform. Yes.
Got you. And another thing is, well, I just use Slido question and get some questions from Slido here. And the one question here is, how will you reach the current unbanked market with the current identity requirements?
So come again, Sakas.
Yeah.
How do you?
How will you reach the current unbanked market with the current identity requirements?
How do you reach the
Unbanked,
unbanked market? Like I said, it's every one of these pockets of so-called underbanked or unbanked market. At least our experience in China, they already become digitized. Although they are underbanked, like in China, obviously the obvious example is they already live and breathe in the WeChat, right? So it's a matter of helping these banks or non-bank financial institutions to push their product and services into this ecosystem. That's why we built this Thinkline platform.
Yeah.
So that concept should apply anywhere, right? It doesn't matter where you go. So whatever target segment you're trying to target, it's very difficult to change people's habit, right? So you just need to tap into rather than drag them onto your banking platform. You should push the product and services into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
That is the key.
So from that point of view, how do you think the user experiences in different market? Like, how do you think you can adapt your user experience in China market or in other nations market? Is there any difference for user experiences for build up such an app?
Yeah, as I mentioned, because stepping outside of China, obviously there are a lot more silos, a lot more smaller pockets of ecosystem or platform providers, we call them, right? So you need to identify them, as your target customer, and pushing, your services into those ecosystems by help of hopefully technology platform such as what we build in China, Thinkline.
And how do you think if you have any major competitors in China? Or you just collaborate with different platforms?
Yeah, it's really collaboration, right? It's not about competing. And I actually don't think that this type of business model, I'm aware at least, I've seen elsewhere. It's, to us, it's probably one of its own kind that I have not seen on this planet yet.
Okay, and currently I think you are just expanding the ASEAN market in Southeast Asia. And how do you think you plan for Europe?
I definitely see, Europe is a very large potential market, and also including market I mentioned just now in the panel, Latin America, Africa, right? Who, also probably two huge markets for us. But definitely we don't want to grow too quickly and spread too thinly at the moment. So yes, currently our focus market is still Asia.
Asian market. So I think that is a totally different market between the Asian market and Europe market. And I think basically your company just work very closely with Tencent platform. And do you think any other things you can work with other tech giants to work with them together for the further development on your platforms?
Yeah, Tencent definitely is one of the most important partner that we have outside of China, being actually our second shareholders, right? They help us to tap into different ecosystem outside of China. And the other partner that we work with is Huawei, so being the infrastructure provider, again coming out of the same city, coming out of Shenzhen, being the Silicon Valley of China. So we also work quite closely with Huawei as well. Yeah. So they actually help us to step into other regions and other markets outside of Asia.
Yeah, thank you. So we're cautious now that we have to conclude this very interesting session. And thank you all. And also the thing is, as for Money 2020 China show, we also plan to invite more qualified speakers to our show for China. And for China one, we will not only focus on fintech, we have also AI, blockchain topics. So feel free to come to me if you have any question, if you want to apply for speaker for China show. And thank you very much, Messi.
Thank you, Boyong.